people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. The IOC's Kirsty Coventry announces scientific approach to help protect the female category. Kirsty Coventry has said there is now overwhelming support among International Olympic Committee members to protect the female category in a significant shift in its gender eligibility policy. Coventry, who was chairing her first meetings as the IOC's new president after Thomas Bach stepped down, said that a task force of scientists and international federations would be set up within weeks to come up with a new policy. It follows the controversy around the Paris 2024 boxing tournament after two athletes, Emaine Khalif and Lin Yuting, won gold medals despite having been disqualified from previous year's world championships for allegedly failing to meet gender eligibility criteria. It's still being reported as an alleged failure, but we wouldn't be here now revising policies if it were alleged. World Boxing, which has since been recognized by the IOC as the Sports International Federation, has introduced mandatory sex testing and said Khalif would not be able to compete in the female category unless the fighter undergoes the test. Khalif has always insisted they were born a woman, has lived as a woman, and has competed as a woman. Then take the test. The IOC faced criticism for its handling of the row in Paris and for a perceived failure to lead on this issue more widely. Coventry indicated that the IOC would not revisit the allocation of medals from Paris and said the organization wanted to look forward and not back. In layman's terms, they're not going to strip Emaine Khalif and Lin Yuting of the medals that they won, but moving forward, they're going to try to prevent that from happening again. We understand that there will be differences depending on the sport, but it was fully agreed that as members as the IOC, we should make the effort to place emphasis on protection of the female category. Coventry's remarks followed 2 days of pause and reflect workshops in Lausanne, where the new IOC president spoke to members about their concerns and how to push the organization forward. If you want to push it forward, stop playing pretend and stop letting men compete in the women's category. That's how you push it forward. If you want to push things forward, stop alienating the majority for the delusions of a few in order to achieve a fleeting sense of virtue. It was very clear from the members that we have to protect the female category first and foremost. She said, we have to do that to ensure fairness, and we have to do it with a scientific approach and with the inclusion of the international federations who've done a lot of work in that area. Why the women's category specifically? Well, there's not a disproportionate amount of trans men trying to compete among biological men because they know they'd get blown out the water. They know they can't compete, whereas the women's categories are a lot more vulnerable, and thus that's where we see the influx of these practices. The new policy is expected to ban transgender athletes with a difference of sex development from competing in the female category. However, Coventry was clear that there would be no changes to results of previous Olympics. We are not going to be doing anything retrospectively, she said. We are going to be looking forward. From the members that were here, it was what we are learning from the past and how we are going to leverage that and move that forward to the future. But why not strip Emaine Khalif? Why not strip Lin Yuting retroactively if this is the policy now? The reason I don't think they're going to strip him is because if they did, that would be acknowledgement that the IOC made a mistake. That could theoretically leave them vulnerable for some athlete or some athletes to file suit on the premise that the IOC's mistake and mishandling of the situation accosted them.
Because if you strip Main Khalif and Lin Yiting, what are you saying? That they never should have won medals in the first place. And if you're saying that,
it's an acquiescence of guilt. So the more neat and tidy way to wrap all of this up is simply ensure that it doesn't happen again moving forward by implementing stricter protocols based on science and not feelings.
Fairness, because this only seems to disproportionately affect the women's category for the obvious biological advantages that a biological man has over a biological woman. Advantages that some people don't care to acknowledge because they'd rather live in La La Land.
Keep this up. And who is it that you expect is going to want to watch these Olympic Games when you're alienating the majority of female athletes to accommodate a minority? A substrata. Mathematically, the math ain't mathin'.
Very bad optics for Main Khalif and Lin Yiting if they don't compete in these next Olympics, as it will serve as confirmation of what everybody thought. Everybody already knew. You two were never supposed to be in that category to begin with.
Now that they're testing athletes based on karyotypes, you two are mysteriously absent, as is Thomas Bach, who allowed this farce to go on in the first place.
So is that a coincidence too, that he's absent and so are you?
It's a stain on the Olympic Charter that will not easily wash out, and all you can do is ensure that it doesn't happen again moving forward based on liberal sentiments and some fleeting sense of virtue.
As if it's at all virtuous to allow a biological man to punch up on biological women and win medals for doing it.
I saw what all those people were saying during the last games, that it was reduced to a clown show in order to accommodate a substrata, a minute portion of the populace seeking to exploit the inherent differences between biological men and women on the premise that there are none. Well, then go compete with the men if there are none.
If it's as fluid as you say.
All you're really doing is exploiting a loophole for mediocre male athletes who can't really hack it amongst the men, so they seek to exploit the women. And it's disgusting.
Thankfully, the new IOC president and the other members are looking to put a stop to it.
We don't need another clown show at the next games.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, you may have heard boxing star Devin Haney's ex gets restraining order. He pushed me to the ground when I was pregnant.
3:16 p.m. Pacific time, a judge just granted the temporary restraining order against Devin Haney, and now both sides are now due in court for a hearing on the matter on July 22nd. Additionally, the judge ordered Haney to have no visitation with his daughter, Chrome, until further order of the court. The mother of Devin Haney's months-old daughter is seeking a domestic violence restraining order against the star boxer, alleging he once pushed her to the ground while she was pregnant. Court documents TMZ Sports has obtained show Lena Syed filed for the DVRO last week over allegations Haney abused her on multiple occasions throughout the past year and a half.
You believe he put his hands on this broad?
I believe that Devin Haney's current predicament is almost identical to the predicaments of other athletes that ended up with women that were out of their league.
Relationships that form for no other reason than the athlete's financial standing.
She wrote on the restraining order request that it all started on February of last year, roughly a year after she and Haney first met. She claimed during a dispute near Las Vegas home, he punched her in the stomach and then kicked her out the house. Nearly a year later, in December of 2024, she wrote Haney got violent with her once again when he pushed me while I was 9 months pregnant, causing me to fall on my tailbone because I would not give him my cell phone. After I fell, she added, he grabbed my phone and threw it on the floor and shattered it. Additionally, she said Haney threatened her earlier this month when he wrote in a text message to tell her that she would be handled in the streets. When I asked what he meant by that, he stated, "You will see," she wrote. "I'm afraid for my life, health, and safety," she said. Syed also sought in the documents for protection for the couple's 5-month-old, Chrome, alleging Haney pierced the baby's ears without Syed's permission when she was just 8 weeks old. This is not an isolated event of the danger he places our daughter in without concern, she wrote.
What happens when you try to fit a square peg in a round hole That's Devin Haney thinking that a woman like Lena Sayed is actually interested in him. It's a harsh reality, but it's the truth.
Likely the truth that from the moment that she met this woman, she saw a John. She saw a Mark, another dumb athlete that she can easily exploit, and all she needs to do is fine-tune her strategy. That doesn't even mean that this stuff didn't happen. What she's alleging.
So then what does it mean?
Stuff could have happened the way she said it happened because she wanted it to happen. Parts of the story that are missing is that she egged all of this on. That from the moment she entered into any kind of relationship with Devin Haney, she knew that she would sabotage it for financial gain. As I reiterate, there are far too many stories just like this one, involving athletes.
They all play out the same way.
Intriguing parts of Lena Sayed's account of events is that Devin Haney became enraged and he wanted to see her phone, likely because he wanted to see who the hell she's talking to.
Infidelity.
And what's likely to elicit a violent response from what is already a violent athlete, someone who fights for a living. How do you think they're going to react when you do stuff like this? All of this could have been by design.
We see it happen to basketball players and football players. It's no surprise when it happens to a boxer, somebody with a short fuse.
It's what happens when you try to fit a square peg in a round hole, because that's what Devin Haney is. He's a square. He's a lame.
I took one look at that Lena Sayed broad and I figured, no way she wants to see Devin Haney's face for the rest of her life.
Are you kidding?
You think she's into that guy. You think she's attracted to him.
It's a hard pill to swallow, but that is too much woman for Devin Haney, and just a year after their relationship started, he's finding that out the hard way, because he, like many athletes, thinks that this woman was at all interested in his aesthetic, or his charm, his budding wit.
You think she wanted to have to stare at Devin Haney in the face for the rest of her life?
I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but it's supposed to be.
She's gonna be counting your money while she gives the next guy a rim job.
Having a kid by a broad like this, making that mistake, that's where you really messed up at. You could have had your fun.
Isn't his daddy supposed to be a pimp? He didn't warn you about stuff like this.
When it all goes bad, Devin Haney's current predicament sounds a lot like Deontay Wilder's predicament with Taylor Swift, though that relationship lasted a lot longer. But as soon as things started to go bad for Deontay, you see the demeanor that Taylor Swift took with him. Oh, now he's physically abusive. Now you need a restraining order.
You're saying that stuff didn't happen?
No, I'm saying that they allow that stuff to happen long enough to build the case. They're willing to put up with it.
Biding their time. Long enough to build the case against you. And then once they got you, they've got you.
Telly's got Deontay. Lena's got Devin. What are you going to do?
Finally, in men's cruiserweight news, Zurdo Ramirez doesn't care about Jake Paul's team's shides over his marketing skill.
Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez listened to the criticisms against him made by Jake Paul and his MVP mate, Nikisa Badarian, and he's suspicious that they're connected to an agenda. I don't think Paul wants to fight. I think he wants to try to make up an excuse, Mexico's Ramirez told Boxing Scene in his final comments following a Saturday night post-fight news conference. If he wants to fight me, I'm willing to fight him. After Paul, 12-1 with 7 knockouts, defeated Julio Cesar Chavez by unanimous decision on Saturday at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, he said Ramirez, 48-1, looked slow as shit in retaining his WBA and WBO cruiserweight belts against Cuba's own Uniel Dorticos by UD in the co-main event. WBA President Gilberto Mendoza told Boxing Scene on Saturday that he expects Paul's victory to vault him into the WBA cruiserweight rankings, which would clear Ramirez to choose him for a title shot. People gotta see more of the skill set, some of the things I've been working on, my toughness, my cardio. So going 10 rounds was great, Paul said in his post-fight news conference. It could lead to a good ranking because of the things I was able to display. From my memory, he only hit me 8 good times.
Earlier today, it was announced that Jake Paul has achieved a top 15 ranking via the WBA, but that ranking is only as useful as Jake's desire to fight for a title. It counts for nothing if he doesn't want to fight Zurdo, and I don't think he does. This will be the excuse that Zurdo doesn't know how to sell a fight and he's not entertaining to watch.
Speaking of a title shot, Jake said, "That's the goal. The only thing I haven't accomplished after Knockout of the Year versus Tyrone Woodley and the most watched fight in history versus Mike Tyson, I neutralize my opponents with my footwork, movement, and feints, and they can't get past the jab." In that session, Badarian repeated the previous criticism of Ramirez's fan engagement skills. The biggest issue is Zurdo didn't show himself to be the promoter in this process, Badarian said. "We said to Ramirez's promoter, Golden Boy, multiple times, why aren't we seeing more out of Zurdo? Why isn't he engaged with the fans? That to me is a big part of making that big championship moment with Jake Paul. Ultimately, he has to make that decision, but someone like the WBC Cruiserweight champion Badu Jack is also someone we want to have a conversation with. Both of these guys are not great promoters. While Jack must first stage a rematch with Noel Mikhailian following their May 3rd bout in Saudi Arabia, Ramirez's schedule is open. In his conversation with Boxing Scene, Ramirez admitted his fourth consecutive unanimous decision triumph, this one over a 39-year-old like Chavez Jr. and top-ranked contender Dorticos, didn't leave him 100% happy. Every time I try to push myself to become a more exciting fighter, I'm trying to be there, Ramirez said. But to feel obligated to talk trash and speak in hyperbole just to sell tickets is not something Ramirez takes comfort in, when he feels the more effective way to generate interest in his fights is making the bouts his fans are clamoring for. Ramirez has previously fought undisputed light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol, and he told Boxing Scene he anticipates showdowns versus unbeaten WBC light heavyweight champion David Benavidez and IBF cruiserweight champion Jai Opataya. I mean, I'm the champion. I don't need to put on a show or something. I have the belts. I want to keep my belts, Ramirez said. I will fight anyone, and isn't that what they want? Paul said he could turn to a rematch versus Tommy Fury, the younger brother of former heavyweight champion who last dealt Paul his lone defeat, but Badarian agreed. The opportunity is there to pursue Ramirez, cautioning the timing must be right. Both guys just fought a 39-year-old opponent, Badarian said. You can't say Chavez is over the hill. Chavez is more accomplished than three-time title loser Uniel Dorticos.
Yet Chavez is also a recovering drug addict.
There is a lot more to separate Chavez as a fighter here today from Dorticos than just their respective ages. Dorticos is a bona fide cruiserweight. He's not a smaller fighter who moved up in weight like Julio Cesar Chavez. Remember, Chavez used to fight all the way down there at 160 or 168, whatever it was.
Just quit the grab-assing. You can read between the lines. You can tell that even though the WBA has given Jake Paul a rank, they're not going to fight Zurdo. He is not their first choice.
And they'll say stuff like, well, he's not that skilled, he's not that entertaining, as opposed to Julio Cesar Chavez.
They said that Zurdo looked slow,
as opposed to Julio Cesar Chavez. They're already laying the foundations to avoid that fight in spite of the rank that they just achieved. They mentioned Tommy Fury, a rematch with him.
Tommy's not busy with anything. He himself has been calling for a rematch even though he won the first fight.
He doesn't want to fight any real cruiserweights, any real champions, any more than Jake does. I think that Tommy is their first choice. A 42-year-old Badu Jack might be their second, and Zurdo comes in pretty low on the totem pole. I don't expect them to fight.
I never did.
Jake might be a little bit crazy, but he's not stupid.